Welcome everyone to Tech Talk by Netranom, a podcast where you will learn tips and tricks on managing your IT. I'm your host, Alina Atkins. Let's get started. All right, so today, again, I have with us Paul Page, our solutions engineer. Paul, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Alina. Good morning.
So today's topic, we're going to talk about IT downtime and how it can really cost your business. Paul, as our solutions engineer, you have seen with different companies that we've worked with just how downtime can actually affect a business. So the first question that I have for you is, how do you define downtime and what does that look like for an actual business?
So it's going to vary, obviously, by organization or business, but for the most part, if we were to define that downtime, we would consider it any loss in productivity. It could be things where you're a retail and your point of sales are down, or you're not able to take money from customers. It could be you're a manufacturing facility and you've got a line running and your machines are down and that line's no longer running. So we want to define that downtime as being anything that affects your productivity for your business, or what generates money for your business.
Right. Yeah. You definitely, if you are selling something to a customer, or like I'm shopping and I'm getting a new pair of shoes, you kind of want to generate that sale. And if a register doesn't work or something, that can kind of...
And there's so many different ones too, Alina. I mean, think of like your doctor's office. If you go there, if their EHR and EMR systems are down, I mean, they are going to take some notes on some paper and stuff while you're there, but it really does affect their ability to serve the patients. So, when we're talking downtime, it can affect anybody. There's no, nobody's exempt from being down.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Because we're all dependent on the data now. So, we've got to have these systems running, applications have to be running, and anytime they're not, we're in downtime.
We are so dependent on technology now. It's crazy. Just even thinking back when I was younger, 10 years ago, how much more technology has advanced and how much more we are dependent on technology. Yeah. So definitely want it to work properly in order to get sales and just overall productivity.
Yeah, when I started a long time ago, we still had some owners of companies that were still on pencil and paper and did not want to make the transition to digital, but that's pretty much, I don't see that anymore. We don't see anybody that's really still on that pencil and paper type technology anymore, if you look at it that way.
That is crazy. What are some of the most common causes of downtime that you have seen in the field?
So lately, obviously, when we talk, traditionally we talk about natural disasters, fires, building fires, water suppression kicks off. But lately, obviously the ones that are really causing us problems are, from hackers. We're seeing ransomware attacks where, that's taking their productivity down for the whole business. Or we're seeing, extortionware as well. We're seeing a lot of those different hacks that are really causing productivity loss nowadays. Essentially, you just got your data locked up and you can't have your data until you pay them or reach some other negotiation with them.
Wow. Yeah, and that's scary too.
It is. Yep.
I know just from friends that have, the way that hackers are getting into our phones, and I'm sure everybody has seen probably the federal government is texting you or saying that you owe a ticket and that this is the last time, the expiration date.
Just got one yesterday. Yep. Yeah, from the DMV. If I don't, pay this right away, that I'm going to be fined and possibly locked in jail and all this other stuff. So it has that sense of urgency in all of these. You'll notice that being common with all these new threats. They're putting a sense of urgency in there. So watch out for those.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk numbers. How can downtime affect a business's bottom line?
Yeah. So again, we're going to have differing industries, different types of businesses and organizations, but it can affect it in several ways. So when you're looking at, as far as if you're looking at your business as being productive and amount of income based on your productivity, when we have that productivity affected, at that point, that's when we're really talking about how the different things can affect your company. Everything from staff wages to maybe loss of contracts or agreements. A lot of things can really affect your company that can cause you problems like that.
Yeah. I think too, it's like it's not just a loss of revenue, you know, because I think that's, well, one thing, if you have downtime, well, that's loss of money. Yeah, like that's a major one. But it's also, like you had said, loss of staff, loss of just reputation too. If your system isn't working properly, people don't want to sit and wait.
Sure.
So they'll go find someone else that has a better
you miss
system.
deadlines. You miss, yes, things like that. You know, we see it in construction all the time where they don't get the roads built in time, and that ends up in litigation, obviously. Well, those same kind of things can happen with downtime for your business. I mean, if you're not meeting those obligations or your agreement that you set forth with your clients, then you are going to have that agreements lost. You're going to lose future sales, things of that nature. So really, that downtime compiles a lot of things. Like I mentioned, staff wages all the way to you're not selling that trinket.
Right, yeah. And that kind of goes into my next question, which was just, you know, beyond lost revenue. And I think we kind of covered that of like, what are hidden costs? Even with that, like what are hidden costs and long-term impacts of repeated outages?
Yeah, so obviously we kind of did mention that last time, and those are the kind of things, you know, we talk about business impact analysis. This is one of the things that you want to do if you're a business owner or a C-level executive. You want to have that business impact and see what it would cost you for your business to be down for that specific amount of time. So you really want to, once you've got that in line, it really tells you all of those hidden costs that you would have, because you've really got to look at the whole picture. You know, staff wages are the ones that people don't consider. If you've got a retail shop and your point of sale systems are down and your register people can't, you're paying those register people money, then they can't do their job. So you've got to look at that. You've got to look at what your losses would be during that time period. You know, we talk about recovery time objective. You know, that's that amount of time you want to have before you're back up and running. You know, for a lot of places, you know, you want that to be no more than 4 hours.
Right.
For certain places, you don't want that to be more than 4 minutes. So it just depends, you know, when you're doing that BIA, that impact analysis, that you're looking at all the variables that are going to affect your business and productivity and downtime and monetary values as well.
You had talked about business impact analysis, BIA. Where does business continuity factor into downtime with your IT? Where does business continuity, where does that come in?
Okay, so business continuity is that ability to keep up and running all the time and be productive all the time. So we typically, you know, pair that with business continuity, disaster recovery. So you want to have a good plan in place in the event that you do have some kind of natural disaster, a fire or ransomware or any of those other things that could cause your business to have outages. So that's kind of where it comes into play. Your recovery time objective, that's got to include business BCDR, what we call business continuity disaster recovery plan. You want to see, okay, in the event we do get this ransomware, how can we roll back? How far do we have to roll back in order to get back up and running? So, you know, typically an hour, you know, you want to be able to roll back an hour or 2 hours or 4 hours or a week. Whatever, it depends on, you know, your system and how you have it set up. So that's kind of where it comes into play. Business continuity is very important. You want to include that with your business impact analysis plan when you're looking at all that stuff. Okay, I get this. How long is it going to take me to get back up and running?
Right.
Yeah. And there's things that you can put in place for business continuity, for sure.
Awesome. What's one thing that a business can do today to reduce the risk of downtime?
So obviously you want to have that business impact analysis. If you have not done one of those yet, you definitely want to arrange to getting that done. And it does take a little bit of work. You're going to have to spend some time doing it. You may even have to hire some outside personnel to come and help you with that. Right. You'll need to look at everything from, you know, how your books are done all the way to your technology that you're using, where your data's at, if you're using cloud or if you're, you know, on-premise stuff. You'll have to look at all that stuff and get that done. That's really where you want to start, because that's going to tell you where you might have some gaps. You know, you might have some gaps in your business continuity disaster recovery plan does not get you back up and running in 4 hours. It's going to take 4 days. You know, things like that. Your recovery time objective is way too far out. You can't afford to lose 4 hours of productivity or miss a deadline or a contract by 4 hours. So that's really where you need to start, is doing that BIA and kind of looking at your entire organization and its productivity as a whole, including those things like we talked about. Yeah. Wages and stuff, everything.
Right. How important, I know we had just talked about, you know, BDR and just backup disaster, but going off of that, like how important are backups, monitoring, and proactive maintenance in business downtime?
So it's paramount. Today, you have to have that business continuity disaster recovery plan. In the old days, we just talked about disaster recovery, backup and disaster recovery, where we had a backup set here. So if something happened, we could go ahead and rebuild our servers or rebuild our applications, put our updates on there, and then load our data, back on the machine and get up and running. Well, that can take a long time. What we would recommend and what we do is we offer a hybrid device that has, business continuity built into that device, where it's taking backups of all of your applications and your data. So in the event you did have some ransomware, we can kind of spin that device up and get you running on that device while we repair the other one, or while the site is repaired, because we could have site outages as well. So you've got to kind of have a hybrid solution today so that you can recover and go to work from wherever you're at. Now obviously there's some limitations. If you're a manufacturing facility and that happens, you can't just go to another manufacturing facility to get up and running. But you do want to have a plan in place to get that facility back up and running, and that does include your business continuity disaster recovery plan.
Perfect. And then the last question I have for you is, if a business owner that's listening today is thinking, this will never happen to us, what would you say to them?
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. These hackers are very well funded. They have very good resources. They're very educated. They are always looking for new opportunities and new ways to get to the business owners' networks and do their thing. So you have to be taking a proactive approach nowadays, some preventive maintenance there, making sure all of your machines are up to date, making sure you have a good BCDR plan in place in the event that they do happen, because nothing is foolproof. I will tell everybody that. Nothing is foolproof. And it's kind of like a leapfrog. The hackers find a way to get into our networks, and then we go ahead and we find ways to block that particular exploit.
Right.
Then they find another one, so it's leapfrog over and over again. So the potential is there for anyone. There is no discrimination as far as who can get hacked, and it's not just the big companies. It's everybody. They're looking out on the network for IP addresses, and then ultimately find your business or your corporation. So
I think that's a good point to mention too. Like you said, it's not just Google. It's not just Apple that, you might think, well, I'm just a small business, 5, 10 employees. Like, they're not going to notice me. No, they target you. They know that Meta and Google and Amazon and all those major companies have these systems already in place.
Right.
So they're trying to find the ones that don't.
That's correct.
And that makes you even more vulnerable.
It does make you very vulnerable. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's taken a big change. When everything started going with the ransomware attacks and all that stuff. Big corporations were a big part of that. What they've realized is those big corporations have been putting some better security systems in place to block them. So like you said, they're starting to target those that do not have the proper systems, or they don't have that proactive approach to keep their data safe.
Right. And then that all goes back to downtime.
It does. If
you're hacked or, you've been caught with ransomware, then you have a significant amount of downtime. I mean, I can't even imagine how long a company would have, how much downtime that they would have if, they've been caught with ransomware and they're asking for, and I don't know what's the average right now?
When it started, we had WannaCry, back, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, whatever it was. WannaCry was the main variant. And it was $300 flat, no matter if you were a big corporation or if you were just a homeowner. It was $300. And a lot of people would pay that to get their data back, especially, you think from a personal standpoint, you've got all your photos and everything on there.
Yeah.
From a business standpoint, that's a lot worse than your photo. Well, in some cases, it could be a lot worse, right? Because, that could be your livelihood. If they have your data locked up and you cannot meet those deadlines for your clients, you're going to lose companies, you're going to, all those things that can happen. So it's really, it's a scary thing for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Paul, I know I've learned a lot more about downtime and how it can affect a company. So thank you just for answering these questions. And
you're welcome.
The podcast that we had, which I'll add that into the show notes, prior to this one was, my company's IT, where do I start? Yeah. And I think this was a great topic to say, okay, now that you have these systems in place, you've checked those boxes with your software, your hardware, and all those different types of things. This is what happens if you don't do it correctly, if you don't have BDR, and if you don't have business continuity or business impact analysis in place, this is what happens when bad things happen.
For sure.
So
you've built it, now it's time to protect it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Paul, thanks again so much.
Thank
And to those who have watched, thank you, and we'll see you at the next one.